Welcome to Why Not You, ladies and gentlemen. I'm your host, Derrick Wells, and today's guest has spent years, decades in law enforcement, retired as a lieutenant, and then did something that most officers really never do or think about. She just got radical about discovering who she is and what's beneath the badge. And so she authored Pleasers, just a powerful story of just reclaiming your voice, your worth, and your life. And so this conversation isn't just for women, it's for everybody. So I just want to thank author and retired Lieutenant Deborah Johnson to Why Not You.
Well, thank you. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. So how's everything going? What you been up to?
Well, biggest thing I've been up to was finishing the book.
Yes.
I kind of put it out there in the air that it was going to release January 1st of 2026.
Mm-hmm.
And this was March and at the time, and I didn't have it together. So I spent some time on the beach, got my thoughts together and just put all my energies into the book.
That's good. And so I know sometimes we come up with these timelines and these projected dates to actually drop something or release something. But just during that time frame, I mean, what did you focus on most, or did you feel disappointed? Because I know sometimes we could just be disappointed and just start thinking, why is this happening type of thing? But I know everything happens for a reason.
Yeah. It's interesting you say that because actually I faced no disappointment. I tell people that it actually was God. That's how I got my book finished.
Yeah.
When I retired from the Sacramento Sheriff's Department and moved to Atlanta, my thing was, I'm retired now. I can write a book. Well, 8 years later, the book wasn't done. And I came back to Sacramento and I was talking to somebody about writing a book. And they said, you know what? There's a couple of people, at the Sheriff's Department, actually, one of the Comm Center girls had written a book. And so I ended up talking to her, and she started talking to me about how easy it was to self-publish. Then I got back to Atlanta, started talking to one of the girls in my neighborhood, and she was writing a book, and she started talking about editors. So I just tell people, I said, God put all these people in my path because once I decided I was going to write the book, then I meet somebody who had written a book. Then I met somebody who had an editor. And so it was just like it all came together. So
Wow.
it's just kind of like clockwork. And so then I said, okay, God, we're putting it out there January 1st. And just some days I stayed up till like 6 o'clock in the morning, brought the sun in. I was on the beach. It's just everything. But he lined it up for me because, like I said, it's been 8 years and I was never able to do it. And then all of a sudden, when he put it out there, it happened.
Wow. He said, you brought the sun up. That's a good one. I ain't never heard that.
Yeah, I did. Some nights I was sitting in my office and I looked out and I'm like, oh, it's daylight. I haven't been to bed yet.
So what do you think that was, I guess, a defining moment like in your life where you were like, you know what? I just kind of want to do something, but what prompted you to write Pleasers? Like, what was the backstory to that? Like, where did it all start?
So I think the defining moment was when I got my divorce. There were some stories I wanted to tell, but didn't know how to tell it. And then, of course, as a patrol officer, you go to people's homes all the time and you're mediating different disturbances. And a lot of them, as you know, deal with domestic violence and just people not getting along, not knowing how to navigate through a marriage. And so seeing a lot of that, a lot of women who I felt were pleasers because they're always there to make, whether you're making your husband happy, your kids happy, friends happy. It's just you never find yourself because you're so busy trying to make other people happy. So by the time I got the divorce, I felt like I had a lot of stories.
Yeah.
So I took pieces of them, and just so you know, fiction. The book is supposed to be fiction,
Right.
so it is a fiction book.
Mm-hmm.
But in all fiction, it comes from something that's real. So there's pieces of my life in the book and all of the characters because there's 4 different characters.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just a matter of knowing what part of the story is truly me.
Right.
And let me start over just to tell you the characters that might help explain, help you understand what I'm saying. So I have a character. Her name is Isabel. And Isabel is a Latina girl who moved to the United States from Mexico at the age of 9. Her
Mm.
mother came over, had like temporary papers, and then she ended up marrying an American so that they could stay. So then Isabel has a story of how things didn't work out and how she loved. And I don't want to spoil it, but so she has her own story.
Uh-huh.
And then I spent time in the military, retired military as well. And so there's a person in the book by the name of Captain Dean. So Captain Dean is a female officer trying to navigate the military, but at the same time, she falls in love with a senior officer. So she has her love story. And then I call her some random girl named Tasha.
Okay.
So Tasha meets a guy in the store picking watermelons. And so she has a story of her own. And then Paige, um, she's my school teacher who actually she starts her story signing her divorce papers. So like I said, they all have a little bit of me in them. Um, when I look at my character, Tasha, Tasha's mother has breast cancer. And like I said, I don't want to ruin the story,
Yeah,
but I survived breast cancer while working at the Sacramento County Sheriff's Department.
that's right.
And my mentality was, I got to go to work. I got to go to work.
Yeah.
So in the book, you'll see, Tasha's mother is going through her own battle with cancer, but all she's thinking about is going to work. So um, that's just kind of like I say, it's fiction, but you'll
Mhm.
see a little bit of my story and all of the characters.
That's good stuff right there. I'm like, as you were talking about all the people, I was like, okay, you got Captain, and then
Yeah.
your story, and I think the thing that's remarkable or just kind of makes me think is that about um, how often that we actually have stuff going on like in our personal lives, but we still have the resilience to fight through because we can't stop just because something might be going on or because we encounter some kind of crisis moment. Do you think, like when you're talking about, okay, you had breast cancer, but you said, I got to get to work. I got to get to work. Where do you think that mindset came from? Do you think that was like prior military, or that was just kind of instilled in you from by your parents, or was that just kind of like a way of like just even though I have this going on in my life, I got to keep it pressing because life continues to go on.
I think it was a combination of both.
Mhm.
My parents both were, I was actually raised by my grandparents, and they were both hard workers. I don't remember a day that they were not working.
Mm.
And so, my dad was, well, this is how you pay the bills. Um, that part of it. And then in the military, because of the fact, both the military and the sheriff's department, they are both agencies that are male dominant. So as a woman, you can't go to sit call, if you have a headache or something, because then you know how people always make those jokes, oh, she's on the rag, or you always hear
Right.
stupid stuff. They
Right.
don't say that about men, when men get sick, but if a woman gets sick and she can't come to work, there's always some kind of problem. So you develop the mentality that even though I'm ill, I got to go in because not only do I have to be, you can't be equal to the male, you have to be better.
Yeah.
So I think that's where a lot of it came from.
Ooh-wee. 'Cause I think you still see a lot of that nowadays, actually, where you have people, um, and I'm not even sure if it's just the fact that you might feel like you have to be better than a male, but sometimes I think you have like this identity piece because I remember when you were around, you were still feminine, right? Like you were a
Right.
woman, you weren't trying to be or act like a guy. Where you have some people or some women that actually act like that. Well, which it's in a just because we're like in a male dominated culture doesn't mean that you have to act like a male. You could still be feminine and be a woman.
Exactly. You
Yeah.
definitely have to be yourself. Um, you know, I remember when I first was in patrol, I was still getting my nails done, going to the beauty salon, getting my hair done weekly and stuff. So you definitely want to keep your femininity.
Mm.
It's just that when it comes to the job, and when I mean equal, I mean you have to carry your weight as far as the paperwork that has to be done, going to the calls for service. Now, nobody expects you to be able to wrestle a guy down, like maybe your counterpart, but you need to understand that I can't do it. So we learn to talk our way out of situations. You don't go in there all, sit down, shut up. You go in there and, hey, how can I help you? And
Right.
it's funny because I had a lot of men who, because I had a feminine side, they would sing like the songs, I'm in love. I'm in love with a female officer, and they put their
Yeah.
hands behind their back. Let me cuff me up or whatever. So
Yeah.
a lot of times that works for you.
That's that's hilarious.
It is. It's
Yeah.
crazy.
I mean, you could definitely de-escalate men that way, with showing that feminine side, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
But but here you are, I mean, you retired as a lieutenant in the sheriff's office, and I mean, that's just not a career, that's a calling that shapes who you are at your core. Like, how did, like, wearing that badge for all those years influence you as a woman and the author you became? And do you actually think it made your do you think it actually made your job easier or harder just to find your voice?
So I actually think that wearing the badge didn't make me. I think I made the badge.
Mm,
And I say that because
that's good.
I knew who I was,
Yeah.
and I went into the job as a public servant.
Mm,
So I think if you maintain the mentality that you're there to serve the community, and yes,
mhm,
you're going to run into bad people and you have to take them to jail. But if you keep the mentality that you're there to serve the people, then you're just another public servant walking in someone's home or business with a badge on. You
right.
don't knock on the door and the badge comes in first.
Mhm.
Because if you let the badge lead you, then you will have problems. So I think that because of who I am as a person,
Yeah.
and I am a pleaser, I like to make people happy. So
Yeah.
if my community is having problems, then I want to go out and find out, hey, how can I solve your problems?
Mhm.
So again, I think the badge was just a backup to who I was because it gave me the authority to go in and offer people the assistance.
That's good. That's good, especially in this culture nowadays. Because I feel like there's a lot of people just because they have the badge that all of a sudden they allow the badge to dictate them and they lose self. And I think it's a bad combination, especially
It
work.
is.
I mean, working in this day and age.
It is. It is. And that's why a lot of people I think don't want to be in law enforcement. Because law enforcement to me, if you do it right,
Mhm.
it's a very rewarding career.
Right.
Um, but if you do it wrong, everybody's going to hate you. Everybody's going to hate cops. And what we do sets an example for the next generation.
That is so true. That is so true. Goodness gracious. I know just like a lot of people in law enforcement, and I think we tapped on this a little bit earlier. But you're trained just to kind of suppress the emotions and just to be strong and just to hold that line. And I think that's kind of going back to like what your grandfather was saying. You just got to get out there and work. You got to do what you got to do. But when it comes to pleasers, it sounds like doing the exact opposite, getting vulnerable and honest. So when you think about that, like how did you navigate the tension between being a lieutenant and the woman behind the story, writing this story here, pleasers?
I think one thing, the difference is that when you're in law enforcement, again, you have a duty, you have a job to do.
Hmm.
These are strangers. We don't know these people. So
Hmm.
we take our training and our knowledge and we go in and we handle a situation. But when you come home or you're with your friends and your family, then those are people you actually love. So I wear my emotions on my sleeve from what people say. And I've had friends before that go, how can you go to work and you do such a good job? But then you get home and all these things are happening, your husband is doing A, B, C, D or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's because when you are tied to a situation, you're emotionally tied to a situation,
Mm.
you wanna make that situation good. So you may bend backwards, you may do things to please people that you wouldn't normally do. But when you're on the street, it's totally different because again, these are not people,
Mm.
it's a job. Although you treat them like they're people, but they're not related to you. So
Right.
it's like, "How can I help you today? How can I get you out of this situation? How can I help your situation?" And then you leave. You don't take it home with you. You don't go home and kick the dog and slap the son. You know
Right.
how you hearing the country songs. It's left at work.
Right.
Then when you get home, you have your whole, another different situation that you're dealing with. And so that's how I kept them separate. Sometimes when you talk about how I found my voice, sometimes I wish I could have taken the lieutenant from work and brought her home, um, because I probably needed to be stronger in some situations, recognize, things for what they were. In the book, I talk about we as women, people in general, but we as women in the book, we take red flags, turn them green, and call it loyalty.
Mm,
And that's what a pleaser is about. If somebody is presenting red flags to you, and I can go on the street and tell a citizen because I see all the red flags all day long, and I'll be
right.
like, why are you accepting that? But in your own life, you see those same red flags
Man.
and you just turn them green. Okay, it's good. It's acceptable today. Let me keep
Yeah.
living. And we see that as being loyalty. We see it being loyalty to a friendship,
Mhm.
loyalty to a marriage. Um, but it's not. It's
Yeah.
it's it's destructive to us, depending on what the red flags are, and if we continue to keep living that way.
And so, because that's a powerful thing to turn the red flags green. Has there ever been like a moment that you remember where you actually turned a red flag green?
Mm. Um, yeah. So looking at the book, um, and I wrote about different women, but um, maybe part of my life in it is that say you're in a relationship,
Mm,
um, and your boyfriend, your loved one, your spouse goes missing.
yeah.
And you're calling, 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 and oh, my signal wasn't working, or oh, I left my phone somewhere. Maybe once or twice you believe it, but at one point you gotta say, "Is there more going on? Is there something beyond that? Because
Right.
they're showing me all these signs,
Mhm.
but I'm letting them erase them away, and I'm accepting that
Right.
because I wanna keep this relationship." And so, yeah, there's times that I did it.
Yeah.
I've done it a lot, and I watch other women do it, and in my book, you'll see a lot of red flags that
Yeah.
all 4 of the women go through, and they continue to accept it until they can't do it anymore.
Wow. Huh. You just got me thinking about so much just on that, because it seems like it's always the red flags that we dismiss, it seems like it's always about or regarding some type of relationship. It seems like majority of the time that we
Yes.
just that we just dismiss it because I don't know, I'm not sure if it's like infatuation or whatever it might be at the time where we know this person is a good person, but we just try to help them out or whatever. And it might be vice versa as well. But do you think based on that, like some of the things that you said, and because I know like for me, for example, like if I dismissed a red flag, like looking back at it now, it was like, what was what was a void in my life at that time that I might have needed this person to fill? And so I just neglected to pay attention to this red flag. Um, and sometimes it might be, I don't know, maybe worth, identity, where I might have relied upon this person just to kind of feel it. Do you feel
Mhm.
like, or do you think that that's where a lot of that stuff actually comes from, like some type of validation or affirmation from another person to fill this
I
void?
think I think most of it comes from that, and, when talking to a lot of women, a lot of theirs comes from self-esteem
Mhm.
and, different reasons. Some people have, been abandoned, so they have abandonment issues, and they tend to cling. I know mine had to do with self-esteem, even though I never really wanted to to admit it, because I see myself as a proud person,
Uh-huh.
and I feel like I'm pretty accomplished, but the inside of me, the interpersonal is like, "Who is Deborah?"
Right.
And I know, like, from a small child, like I said, my sister and I, we were raised from our grandparents, and a lot of that had to do with my biological mother, who was their daughter. She was more accepting of my sister and my brother
Mm,
because they were more a lighter red complexion.
mm.
She would call me her little dark chocolate drop. "You're cute too," "Your hair is nice too."
Yeah.
And so you start growing up wanting to be accepted.
Mhm.
And although my grandparents did a really, really good job of, making sure I was loved and treated me the same as they did my sister, we still got those phone calls from my biological mother. And I still knew she was my biological mother. And I
Right.
still knew how she felt about me. So
Mhm.
I grew up, my inner self wanting more. Um, but like I said, I played it off. I continued to grow and do things. But when I really look back and examine myself, I know my triggers came from being a young kid.
Right. Got it. That's some good stuff. That's some good stuff for
And and it takes a lot to
it
really
does.
admit it because you see it,
Mhm.
but then you don't want to accept it. I know
Yeah.
recently, like my sister and I had a conversation
Mhm.
because um, my biological mother actually died of cancer. And she, was an alcoholic and stuff. So my sister really didn't have anything to do with her. So she wasn't even allowed to have my sister's phone number.
Oh, wow.
So when Mother's Day came around, she would call me and talk to me. I mean, I was the second. I was the only one that was talking to her, right? So she'd call me and she would say, "Oh, how's your sister doing?"
Mhm.
But she would always ask me about my sister because she couldn't make contact with her. There was a point where I don't know if my mother's breast cancer, because I don't even know if she had breast cancer first or stomach cancer, but I don't know if there was a point where it could have been cured.
Mhm.
But there was one point in her life where, because she didn't have a relationship with my sister, she stopped wanting to live. Um, I actually found out when my mother didn't call me like one Mother's Day and one birthday. She lived in Houston. I called her and she wouldn't answer the phone. So I actually called Houston Police Department and had them do a welfare check. I found out she was in her home, kinda just dying. She didn't have the will to live because she had cancer.
Wow.
So when I told my sister about it, my sister went to Houston to try to help her out. At that point, she was trying to go get chemo.
Are you
She
serious?
was trying to she was trying to get chemotherapy and everything, because now she had a will to live because
Yeah.
my sister acknowledged her.
Wow.
And my sister and I recently had a conversation about it, and my sister said, "Oh, I didn't know that." And I said, "Yeah, she was over there dying until you showed up." And I said, "And so, um, even though you never accepted her, she always wanted your acceptance, and I always yearned for her acceptance, my mother's acceptance." So it's kinda like once I got past that and I realized I didn't need it,
Mhm.
I was fine who I was, that kinda started me really, like, examining why do we please as women? And like I said, it doesn't start out we wanna just please a man. It could have been our mother we wanted to please or something else. There's something we're missing on the inside that causes us to continue to do this in life.
Yeah, that is so true. Did it take you a long time to get to that point where I mean, it's for I guess with the self-reflection piece, where you can, finally just acknowledge where it was coming from?
It took me a while. It took me probably 28 years of marriage. It took 28 years of marriage. Um, and then when I started actually putting the pen to paper
Uh,
and looking back on other people and some of my friends,
mhm.
um, because I could see in other people where their problem was.
Yeah,
'Cause we do that as cops, we get sent to people's homes, we can see their problem.
yeah.
But to really sit down and ask myself and to
Mhm.
think about it and look back, um, that's where it started.
Mm. Well, you got me over here thinking doing some deep reflection about
Yeah.
because I
It
think
takes a lot.
it does,
Okay.
huh? And it's like other people bring that kinda stuff out because it's almost like them helping you actually recognize the blind spots that you might have or, just personal characteristics that you might not be privy to, or just habits, and then how you actually handle, whether it's confrontation or disappointment, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the other thing too is we as, Black people, African
Mhm.
Americans, we're kinda taught from a young age that therapy is really not acceptable.
I know, right? Mhm.
More and more people are starting to seek out, therapy. But so we spent many, many years going through trying to self-diagnose,
Mhm.
self-medicate, self-treat. I think because I have such a strong personality, um, I never self-medicated, through
Mhm.
medication and self-treated through that. But we see a lot of people who do,
Yeah.
they become alcoholics, drug addicts, and so on, um, rather than going to therapy. And I think because of the fact that um, I am resilient and I had lot of really good traits, good jobs where I people, um, it made it easy
Mm.
for me just to move on and, not fall into some of those pitfalls.
That's good. That's good. So while you were writing this book, was there like any particular chapter that made you stop and think like, am I really ready to put this put this out here and talk about this stuff?
Um, I don't think so.
Mm,
Because of the fact, again, it's fiction.
yeah,
So unless you really know me, um, or went through one of the experiences with me, you don't know if that really happened to me or not.
yeah.
So, like I said, there's 4 characters, they're very diverse,
Mhm,
and, like I said, a small piece could be me, like, a girl could have an entire love affair, but the only part of me is, her mother had cancer.
yeah,
So, I think
mm,
because of the fact that it's fiction, it was easy to put it out.
yeah,
Now the scary part was it gonna be any good? 'Cause I wanted to write a book,
yeah,
and when I pushed the release, but, I said, "Release this on January 1st," then I said, "Oh god, what did I do? What did I do?" So I think that was the scariest part. But I've gotten some good reviews,
mhm,
so I'm happy about that. A lot of women actually said they found it helpful because they found themselves in the book. Their relationship may have been slightly different. Some
yeah,
may have been, same incidents happening,
mhm.
getting ghosted, um,
Oh, yeah.
not being able to find somebody,
Mm,
Some of them have experienced it. It just looked a little different.
mm. And so, like, so I know you said you got some good feedback from other women. So, I guess when you think about the women, since it's pleasers and specifically kinda, for women, but also for men also, I would think, who would you say, like, this would actually help the most? Or you think it's, like, for all women or specific age groups? Or do you think if a young adult woman, young lady actually gets this book, that it actually, I guess, just help them with the personal development aspect as far as, like, identifying that I am a worthy person. I am a resilient, self-sustaining woman, independent woman, where I don't need to be validated by this person. And so now all of a sudden they start having like these, I guess, like these just strong attributes that actually helps and shape and form them.
Yeah, I think it's good for all age groups, at least over the age of 18,
Mm,
Um, because it's not explicit,
mhm.
but there are a couple of sex scenes in the book, so I would
Okay.
recommend it for anybody's young child. And what's interesting about it is I do think, though, sometimes as women, we're in denial.
Uh,
So maybe a younger woman, someone 21 years old, may not have experienced a lot of relationships, or maybe not even had her first relationship yet.
mhm.
And so she may look at it and go, "Oh, those things aren't going to happen to me." So she may be in denial, but at least she can see that as we have red flags,
Yeah.
she experiences any of those because
Mhm.
the first girl in the book, Isabel, actually came over at 9. So her
Mm,
story actually starts as from a 9-year-old going up to, till she's like 30. So, um, if you're able to see yourself in that story, then maybe that will be helpful for you. I know a lot of older women who have seen the book, 40-year-olds, 50-year-olds, were like, "Yep, I dated that guy. I dated him. I had that experience." And some of them are still in those relationships, and
are
maybe it
you
will
serious?
find their voice. Um, and a lot of them have gotten out, and they're like, "Yep, same thing happened to me, and I'm glad I was able to make it through that." So, I think they're good stories.
Mhm.
Like I said, people will see themselves in all of the characters, and I hope they just enjoy it.
That's good. That's awesome.
So
And so when you think about, okay, here you have this book now, somebody's gonna be able to relate. to somebody in this book, I would imagine, just kind of like what you were sharing. What are, I think, what are some of the things you would want the readers to walk away with?
I think I would want them to walk away with, if you see yourself in the book and you're still in a relationship similar to those, don't wait too long to get out.
Mm,
We are strong as women. We are strong by ourselves, and love is not supposed to hurt.
right.
And, um, sometimes we end up being pleasers because our love language is to serve others. But you have to understand, when you're serving someone, but it's painful, love is not supposed to be painful. So that's when you need to walk away. And we can do it. We can step out on our own and be just as strong as we are when we're with someone, probably even stronger. Because I believe that when you're in a relationship and you're pleasing,
Hmm.
really not that strong, because what you're doing is you're dummying yourself down or being less of yourself in order to make the other person happy.
Right. Yep. Absolutely. Because it's almost like you're just giving yourself up and allowing this other person to have control over you. It's no telling, but I just know one thing: you're actually losing yourself. You're losing your a big portion of your identity, and that's sometimes that stuff is hard to recover from.
Yeah. I met a woman, and this is something real simple. I met a
Mm,
woman who, her and her husband used to go to dinner all the time. And she would wanna order steak, and he wanted the prime rib. So they ordered prime rib all the time because he liked the prime rib. So when she got her divorce, she's like, "I don't even like prime rib." She hadn't had another prime rib since she got out of the relationship. But it's just something that simple, you doing something for someone else, things that we don't even like.
right.
So once you regain yourself back, your self-worth, and like I said, some people may have to seek out counseling. Uh
Hmm.
because, some of us, it's a little deeper than others.
That's right.
Mm. So, you can read a book, you can see yourself in the book, but you may need some help sometimes walking away from the situation.
Mm. So, do you have like a go-to person that, or I guess just I would say maybe like a confidant or somebody that you can actually just kind of talk to and bounce things off of? Because I know some, I mean, accountability is huge, but also having somebody that you could talk to who's not going to be judgmental is also helpful.
I have a couple of friends that I can go to. I actually have a friend who, she got married, like, she was a pleaser in her relationship, and she walked away. And then she remarried this guy about, I think it was 19 years ago. They just celebrated their anniversary. And they're both Christians, and they got together and they wrote a book called Waiting on God to Marry. And they go out and they do marriage retreats and stuff all the time. So when you talk about the red flags and turning them green,
Yeah.
um, she's able to see those things. And because she's, a Christian woman, she'll come right to you, and there's a way to tell somebody, because you can't just be like, "Girl, you're crazy."
Yeah.
She'll say, she'll give you scriptures in the Bible,
Yeah.
and say, God doesn't want this for you. God loves you. You have to love yourself.
Hmm.
So she and I talk a lot. When I go through things, I'll call her, and um, she'll help me out a little bit. Matter of fact, she's in the book. She's in the book, uh, but she's in the book, so I'll just share these because I shared it at one of my signings. Um, so in the book, there's Captain Dean,
Hmm.
and Captain Dean, when you're a military officer, you usually have, especially if you're a company commander, you usually have an enlisted person working with you, like a first sergeant or your training sergeant. And military officers tend to kinda get chauffeured around. And so there's a few scenes in there where Captain Dean is with her first sergeant that works for her.
Hmm.
And so they have some heart to hearts because, um, the first sergeant sees a couple of things that Captain Dean is going through, and she's like, "Why do you even like him?"
Yeah.
He's not even cute, so, he's a dog. So, but they have this really, really good relationship where, most of the time, NCOs are trying to tell you how to leave troops, but they've become friends on the side as well,
Mm,
and so they can confide in each other. And so she worked for me, although I'm not Captain Dean. She worked for me, and she had a lot of good insight on different things.
mm,
So she and I are are still friends to this day. And like I said, she and her husband wrote the book about waiting for God
That's
to
good.
marry. And so we still talk. We talk about old things that happened back when we were on active duty together. And we just talk about things that are going on in our lives now. So,
That's good. Captain D.
so, but I will tell you, there is a part two of Pleasers coming.
Mm,
It was not my intent. Actually, I was thinking about writing another book, and it was going to be more law enforcement related. I wanted to talk a little bit about the struggles as a female Black officer, dealing with a male white dominant organization, and then having to deal with the Black community, especially in today's times. Because are you accepted in either place for real? 100%. So I was looking at a way to write that, a fiction story as well.
mhm.
But then people who had read Pleasers were like, "You just kind of left us hanging. Is there a part two? What happens to these people?" So I was out on the beach in the Dominican about a month ago and heard some stuff behind me, and it actually would kind of fit into what direction the ladies are going.
Yeah,
Now it's gonna be, like, 5 years later because the first book is, like, pleasers, you're looking at yourself in a mirror, right?
yeah.
But now that they've all found their voice, it's 5 years later beyond the mirror.
Mhm.
So, I started writing that, and so a lot of people are like, "Oh, good, good," you know? So Pleasers 2 is coming. I don't have a
Alright.
date for it yet, but, I am gonna finish the story so that people will find out what happened to these 4 women after they got their voice.
I'm excited. I'm
So
excited. And so I know you have a book signing coming up and everything. Can you share a little bit about that?
Yes. So on Saturday, March 21st,
Mhm.
there's a bookstore in Elk Grove. It's called A Seat at the Table Books off of Laguna Boulevard. It's in the parking lot with Five Guys. I'll be there from 2 to 3:30. It's a celebration of it's Women's History Month. So they gave me a section. So hopefully I sold 30 tickets. They told me I had to put a limit on it because I only had a section of 30. But because it's Women's History Month, people will be rotating in and out. So I'm going to be there from 2 to 2:30. I'll have my banner out. I'm going to read a couple of snippets from the book, talk about the book, and do book signings.
Nice. I'm excited for you.
Well, thank you. Thank
This about
you.
to be off the hook. Come on now.
Thank you.
Please us too. Then you're gonna have you a whole series, you know what I'm saying?
I know,
Yeah.
huh? But I do have to do the law enforcement book because that's a story too.
Yeah.
I know there are women, of all, all ethnicities that are struggling through, um, working in a male dominant profession. I think we struggle a lot, especially as Black females, because we have a whole community of people who really don't like law enforcement. So it's that, how do you balance them both?
It's good. Do you have a title of that one?
So far, what has come to me, it's
Ooh-wee.
yeah, so that's what's come to me so far.
Okay, that sounds
Uh,
deep too.
By the time it's written, I don't know if the title will be the same, but
Right.
as of right now, that's what I'm looking at.
Yeah, that's good.
Well, thank
Yeah,
you.
I'm so excited that you came on.
Well, thanks for having
Yeah,
me.
this is good. This is good. We
Thank
have to do it again for sure.
Alright, alright.